Hello, my name is Justin Balia, and I'm a legal officer. I work with Human Rights Awareness and Promotion Forum, where I head our Paralegal and Outreach Services Unit in our Access to Justice program. I am very excited to be able to share this with you and to discuss the issues that LGBT people in Uganda face in terms of access to health services. As you may be aware, we have almost 70 countries in the world that criminalize same-sex sexual relations, including Uganda, not very surprisingly. And about 22 of those countries are in Africa, which is, there's a heavy burden on LGBT people. As we'll be discussing as we go along, the decriminalization of LGBT people in Uganda and in other parts of Africa has led to very serious violations of the rights of LGBT people and has limited access to health services, especially to HIV prevention, treatment and care services for LGBT people. And over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be discussing those issues, the issues that prevent LGBT people from living full and open, meaningful lives that limit access to health services and access to justice, and how all of this affects their quality of life. LGBT people in Uganda and in Malawi and Kenya face severe discrimination and marginalization because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. This mostly is rooted in the legal regime that because it is illegal to be gay in these countries, a lot of people think it is okay to dehumanize gay people. So Ugandans, people from Malawi, people from Kenya, they generally tend to behave towards LGBT people as though they are less than human because of who they are, because of their sexuality.
Corrective rape is like a lesbian is being raped just to correct her, to make her feel that we have a penis. You have to feel this penis. They're trying to believe that if you experience penis, you're going to change, you're going to love it.
And unfortunately, in most cases, this kind of violence, it is sanctioned by the police authorities. And if it's not explicitly sanctioned, then it's just not responded to at all. It's ignored entirely.
The government at times brushes off the fact that there are LGBT people in Kenya. The government has never come out, including our own president. Yes, they brush the fact that we exist in the country.
They are quite vulnerable because they are marginalized, they are stigmatized and underserved, and most of the time the legal environment does not allow them to come out and claim their rights that they deserve under the Constitution, because legally they are deemed to be people who are practicing illegal issues in Kenya. That clearly bars them from coming out to be who they are. The other issue that affects the LGBT persons is the fact that socio-cultural environment does not allow them to also practice their sexual orientation, because the society does not allow that. The culture where they come from does not allow them. So their friends, relatives, and other people in the community do not entertain their behavior, and that makes them to hide from the bigger society.
My name is I'm 31. I born male by gender identity, but after some time, that was 2011 to 2012, it's when I realized myself that I'm different from the other people. Now I feel like not a male as such, but I feel myself as a female. So in short, I can call I'm a trans woman, I'm a transgender. When I discovered myself that I'm a transgender, it was a very big challenge to my side, because I was not even accepting myself, because I was nowhere where I was. That's why I'm saying it was a challenge, because I was living in fear, in a denial manner, to say, to whom now I'm going to tell this, or what will be reaction to me being a transgender within the community. The first person to tell him was my best friend. Now my friend and I were knowing that I'm different from other people within the community. Then it was 2015 when the landlord chased me from his compound. It was a very painful and I hated myself on that day. All the reasons behind are just because the people discovers me that I'm a transgender person.
Yeah, my name is Gift Trappens, the director of SEDEP, Center for the Adventist People. This is an LGBT organization based in Malawi. SEDEP is one of the pioneers on LGBTI rights or advocacy in Malawi. The organization started in 2006, basically to challenge the discrimination, the oppression that the LGBT community face in Malawi. As an organization, we work with the community. We are a community-led organization. Our approach is to work with peer educators in different programs that we have. We have health and HIV programs, and also we have human rights programs, specifically also focusing on violence against the LGBT community, but as well access to justice.
My name is I became a peer educator because I wanted to give and support my friends out there who are key populations just as I am. So what motivated me was that a lot of friends that I have were unable to access services like in the hospitals or wherever, just because they are or we are in a group that is not, approved by the society out there. As a peer educator, it has helped me to access services in the hospitals, police, and other services that need to be accessed by every other person who is a human being. And it has also helped me to give the same support to other friends who could not access services by them. When I go out there, meet with my peers, we discuss on the challenges that we go through day by day, how we can tackle the challenges, and of course, give them assistance and some counseling, depending on how life can go.
LGBT people tend to face a lot of harassment and a lot of discrimination in health service delivery. In most countries across Africa, it's very difficult for LGBT people to just walk up to a health facility and confess that, I'm gay and I think that maybe my sex practice may have something to do with what I am suffering from. So generally speaking, they get to access general health services, like if they're suffering from malaria or they have smallpox, but they find it really, really difficult to discuss issues of sexual and reproductive health with health workers. And this fear is not unfounded. There are so many cases of health workers who have been even abusive, violent to LGBT people. There are so many health workers who have outed LGBT people to police authorities, to their own relatives, when they do find out that a person is LGBT. In different parts of Africa, but specifically in Uganda, Kenya and Malawi, there have been some issues with health workers who genuinely think it's their duty, their moral duty or their legal obligation to report LGBT people who come to them. The discrimination that LGBT people generally face tends to discourage them from seeking HIV/AIDS prevention, treatment and care services, and that increases the burden of HIV among the key populations. So we want to look at how that manifests for people in the health sector, but also what steps are being taken to try and address this challenge in order to increase uptake of HIV prevention and care services and reduce the HIV incidence among LGBT persons.
I can't just walk into any public health facility as an LGBTI person. Because if I am going there for any STI screening, the medical practitioner will ask me, where's your partner? And if I go with my female partner, they'll be like, no, we need your partner. But you try to explain to someone, this is my partner, and they're like, how? There's no way a woman and a woman can be a partner. We need your partner. So you'll find that at the end of the day, I don't get the services. If I am gay man and I have the anal warts, I go to the hospital and tell, how did you get this? Since when? Then you try explaining to them, they are like, no, let me go and bring my Bible. Let me read it out for you.
The experience we are having when we go to the hospital, if I go as a general public, at a such point we don't feel any challenge. But as far as I explain my own problem which I brought, for example, maybe I'm having an sexual transmitted infection. For example, I'm having something in my anus. I know they will be going to ask me why this happened. So that that's why there is coming a challenge to say why and how. So sometimes we live in a denial. We don't go because we're having a problem, but we go to the hospital because we are in fear to say how I am going to explain it and how shall a nurse receive it.
My name is Susie McLean and I work at the Global Fund for AIDS, TB and Malaria. So the Global Fund's had a long-standing interest in serving these populations, key populations, both with kind of traditional, if you like, HIV prevention, testing and treatment services, but also in human rights interventions to address HIV vulnerability, to ensure that people are less vulnerable to HIV transmission, but also to accelerate or to break down barriers to services so that all people, including men who have sex with men, transgender people, have the same rights to service, to a high quality service as everybody else, so that we know that many men who have sex with men, for example, or transgender people are either not accessing HIV services out of fear of poor treatment, discriminatory treatment, but also that we know that many sexual minorities or key populations, when they are accessing mainstream health services or HIV services, that they're often treated poorly, they're treated in undignified ways, their privacy is breached out of discriminatory processes that sometimes get called HIV stigma, sometimes are related just to HIV itself, but also many of us know that some of these stigmatizing and discriminatory practices are born from discriminatory practices or beliefs by healthcare workers that are about sexuality.
One of the reasons why the marginalization of LGBT people and the dehumanization of LGBT people in Uganda and Kenya and Malawi is so deeply entrenched and so difficult to address is that in most cases it's actually done by duty bearers, by the people who are charged with the responsibility to protect the rights of LGBT people. So you find that in most cases, people like police officers whose job it is to protect the life and property of everybody in the country will play favorites, with obviously the LGBT people never being the favorites. So many cases have been handled where LGBT people have been the victims of violence, and in response, the police has arrested them instead for being too gay, as though there is a problem. They cause the violence for themselves by just being queer. So this has made it very, very difficult for violence against LGBT people to be effectively addressed when all the time they have to work against the idea of police officers, of local leaders, of military officers, of politicians even, of their elected representatives in parliament, in the state, actively campaigning against their rights and taking active steps to violate the rights of LGBT people, to pass new laws, to find new ways to dehumanize and to mistreat LGBT people in Uganda.
LGBT persons have to interface with these people, whether they like it or not, because the life that we live, including LGBT persons, is shaped by the services that these duty bearers are actually providing. So you find that, for example, you live in a village and you have the chairperson of that particular village. So anything you want to do at that village, you have to get in contact with this chairperson. If it is the police, you still have to get in contact with the police. If it is a health worker, you still need to go to a hospital or a clinic. You will still find these people, so you can't avoid them. But unfortunately for LGBT persons, they find that because of the beliefs, because of the environment, and all that thing, that when they face these people, they don't actually get what they expect from them, because the treatment sometimes is discriminatory, and they, in most cases, face a lot of violations from these very people that are supposed to help them.
I'm Bishop Evans, and I'm a preacher who preaches in the slums. I used to hear, but not see, because I didn't just want to see. But the first time I saw, I met a man kissing a man. I had to stop, and they were also shocked because I had to stop and stare at them, and they also stopped and stared at me. And we looked at each other, and they were also, I think they were really a little bit scared, and I was really wondering what's going on, a man kissing a man. And I said, what's all this? This is what I've been hearing, but the first time I saw it. But I saw it, but I'm hearing a lot of things. And this also happened in Uganda, and then the president of Uganda said, if you're found, you'll be killed, something like that. And though we didn't really I didn't like it, but I didn't like what he said should be killed. Should we make other people love others and hate others? Jesus did not do that. He didn't love others and hate the others. No, he loved them all.
As HIRAP, we have really focused so much on duty bearers, because we have learned that even the laws themselves that we have in place are not the sole reason why LGBT persons are violated. There's beyond the law, there are people with those opinions that eventually shape what the law looks like. So what we are doing is to reach out to those particular people who have influence and shaping. So we are meeting them, having dialogues, respecting, of course, their opinions, but also giving them the side of the reality of LGBT persons. We have found that actually there's a lot of misinformation when we dialogue with these duty bearers, that some of them have been acting on misinformation. They don't have the real information about the lives of LGBT persons. They don't understand diversity.
My name is Evan Sokuto. I'm a police officer from Kisumu, that is Nyanza Regional Training Center, Kisumu. We police officers, we are rough, if I'm sincere. And when we heard of this, of LGBTI, we thought that these people, we have to eradicate them. We have to deal with them because this is bad to our society. And we were thinking about the upcoming group, the small group, the adolescents and whatever. How will these people cope? They will copy from these people silently. So we have to deal with this group before the sensitization. But they came to our institution and they say that we need to talk with our bosses and the juniors. They have information they want to share with us. That is when we realize that these LGBTI, we have to accommodate them in the society. But initially, it was quite difficult. And even other areas where the information have not reached there, I think there are other police officers who still have difficulty to understand, even to accept that this group is existing in Kenya.
If someone is victimized, you find that that person cannot report the case to the police. They are afraid of being treated as victims themselves. We have criminal laws that criminalize same-sex relationships. So whenever they go into the police station, they are looked at as criminals because of the laws that we have. I think for us, the first thing that we need to see is to change the law so that we decriminalize same-sex relationships we have a legal framework that can treat all citizens equally.
Uganda is one of those countries that still criminalize homosexuality, as does Kenya and Malawi. And in some countries in Africa, you get the death penalty, but in Uganda, the punishment is, well, not really much lower. It is life imprisonment for having kind of knowledge against the order of nature. Over the past few years, Uganda has actually made active efforts to further criminalize being LGBT in Uganda. I think this started with the anti-homosexuality bill in 2009, and in 2014 it was passed as an actual law that would have criminalized a person being gay, as basically just identifying as gay, being a homosexual, or being a homosexual more than once, which was defined as aggravated homosexuality, as in being convicted of being gay this year and then you become gay again next year. And not reporting people you know are gay when you know they are gay. This would have really complicated service delivery for a lot of people. It would have complicated life extensively for LGBT people in Uganda. And when that bill was announced, there was a breath of fresh air. Now things seemed to be getting a lot better. And then in May of this year, our parliament passed a new sexual offences bill, which expands on criminalization of having kind of knowledge against the order of nature to include things like using toys for sex, or even oral sex in some aspects, and also clearly defines kind of knowledge against the order of nature as sexual contact between two persons of the same gender. So the situation is not so good both in Uganda and in Malawi and in Kenya and in all other countries where LGBT, where it is criminal for two people of the same sex to engage in sexual contact. And the criminalization of LGBT people everywhere actually feeds the marginalization of LGBT people. That while African societies are, most African societies, at least in Uganda, the societies are generally very homophobic, very conservative, very negative towards LGBT people. Having a law that also says it is wrong to be LGBT reinforces that marginalization. It feeds into that marginalization and makes it so much harder for LGBT people to access human rights protection. Even when they've been clearly violated, it is much more difficult for LGBT people to get justice. Since other people can hear and say that one is gay, and then they will be charged for being gay. In another law doesn't say that is exactly an offense. So the marginalization of LGBT people feeds off and also feeds into the criminalization of LGBT people. And this situation has not become any better with the whole COVID-19 crisis. During COVID-19, especially in Uganda, the regulations and restrictions that have been imposed by the state to curb the spread of COVID-19 have greatly influenced violations against LGBT people in Uganda, and also increased criminalization in a way that so many people are being arrested purely because they are gay, but because they can't charge them for being gay, they end up charging them with disobeying presidential directives, disobeying lawful orders, doing an act likely to spread infection of COVID-19, all of which are actually really fake in their own right. So these directives and crimes that are created there and have joined the ranks of offences like being a common nuisance, which is basically defined as being annoying in public, or being a rude and vagabond, which means, according to our laws, moving around at such time and in such manner as to make it look like you're probably about to commit an offence. So all these laws have been used to harass and to discriminate against LGBT people in Uganda over the past few years.
I'm a transgender woman. Yes, age I have 24. Like sometimes I think the police for us, like on because of 20, I was going to meet my friend. Yes, I meet my friend. Then at morning, the police came and they speak. They told us the people see the people
that your neighbors were saying that people are neighbors.
Yes, they see more people. They act like girls. They talk like girls. They walk like girls. They're having more questions. What those people? They are gay. They are not gay. They want to find out. Yes.
So the police came because the neighbors wanted to find out if you guys are gay.
Yes.
And what happened when they came?
They came. They arrested us. They started checking us. Are you girl? Are you boy? Show us if you have vagina. Show us out. They request us to show them.
And that was the police people.
Yes, not to the police people, and also the mayor gym, but they told us, you remove your trouser, I want to know. What pro? I a girl, I a boy. Like I choosing us. Yes. Some people they run, they pass in the small cage, they jump the another fences.
They jump over the fence to escape.
Yes. And me, I was running, I fell down. They found me there. I was having my phone on that day. Then I started calling the LFO staffers to confirm them.
To tell them that you have been arrested.
Yes. They brought us around the sitting rooms. They took all the people in the sitting room. Then they started asking us, what are you doing here? You'll be introduction in this situation. Your introduction, boy and a boy.
Oh, so because we are having a traditional marriage ceremony between two guys.
Two guys.
Okay.
You are here. They started beating us. Yes, the officer slapped me. And you, the natural person, what are you doing in this city?
Yeah, you do look older than
I'm like, just keep me quiet. Because I feel a policeman. Yes, that's it. I feel a policeman. The lights on the patrol. My heart started pumping very fast.
Even if you're just walking on the road, every time you see a patrol, that's the reaction. You're scared of alcohol.
I'm scared of alcohol. The police officials, they treat me badly on my side. They start choosing us. You come out and say, what are you doing on that party? They start beating us. The experience I got, they are not tests. They force the people.
Until the police officer would force you to submit for an annual examination.
Yes. It was hurtful because the doctor, police doctor, they put the gloves, they put inside the arm. They put the all arms. Yes, the people in the cell, they didn't welcome us. That is the fact. They saw us, they told us to sleep in the corner. There is also there in the jail can, there is people in the corner. They told us, you are gay, you're supposed to sleep in the corner.
How did they know you were gay?
Because the police officer is the one who told them.
Oh, like a police officer takes you to the cell and then says, this one's a gay.
Exactly. But I remember when at night, the RRP came back. They said,
RRP, that's like a prefect in the cell.
Yes. It's like, I hear someone touching me. Maybe that gay person. You extend the corner. You are gay, you're supposed to suffer. You are gay. When the RRP told some people, if I have the right in right now, they have a gun, I will shoot you guys because we're gay. We are not human beings. You are animals. You are not animals. You are the demon.
Wow. And that was also a fellow prisoner?
Yes, fellow prisoner. It was not good. The officer beat us, and deputy OC, he told the prisoner to beat us. They beat us seriously. In order to I still have
you still have the
scars on my back, on my behind parts. I still have the scars. They beat us seriously.
The deputy OC and the inmates also?
Yes. The deputy OC beat us also.
So we are coming to the end of this session, and I thank you all so much for staying with us thus far, for listening to us, for hearing our stories, for hearing our voices and our experiences, and for sharing, for allowing us to share part of our lives and our work. It's been a real pleasure for me and for all of us who have participated in this to be able to discuss this with you guys. So we thank you so much for your time and for your attention. And as you have seen from the video and from all the stories that have been shared here, discrimination for LGBT people it's still a very major problem in so many ways across so many different countries in Africa. For Kenya, Malawi, and Uganda, where we've been focusing this conversation. As you have noticed, it's difficult for LGBT people to live a life that's even close to normal unless they maintain a strictly closeted lifestyle. That the moment anybody discovers that somebody is LGBT, all bets are off, everything changes. Violence becomes more the norm than the exception. Local leaders can't be relied on to support or to help in any way. A lot of times even the families themselves cannot be relied on to offer any kind of support, which is a major problem in a society that is so still so family oriented, that still relies so heavily on the social support network that comes from a family. So LGBT people in Uganda and in Malawi and in Kenya still find it so difficult to just come out and to live openly. Access to health services is a very difficult thing. Obviously, as we've discussed, most countries have these wonderful inclusive policies, but the issue is that those policies only work as long as people remain in the closet while they access health services. And that health workers will generally be more comfortable as long as a person does not disclose that they're LGBT. And the moment a person feels the need to say they're gay in their course of their treatment, attitudes change a little bit. Police officers cannot be relied on to protect the lives of LGBT people without discrimination. All these aspects, all these issues, the rhetoric around LGBT people in the mainstream media, in social media, by politicians, even in some places like Uganda, by the president on occasion. It's so difficult for LGBT people to navigate such environments. It's difficult for them, it's difficult to just survive, and that is the reason why so many CSOs just have to just keep working. Here are partners everywhere, SEDEP, in Malawi, our friends in Kenya. It's important to just not stop. The work does not stop, it's a heavy load, but slowly by slowly there have been some major improvements, there's been some change. There have been some milestones that we are proud of, there have been some changes, there's been some improvement for LGBT people in some spaces. In some spaces, things are even a little bit worse, but that does not mean that we stop. It only means that we work harder, we strive harder, and we try and ensure that at the end of the day, the world is just that little bit more inclusive, more friendly for LGBT people. Thank you so much.